Hare Krishna, welcome to our 22nd day Parikrama, or is it 23rd day Parikrama? And so today is a very, not a very energetic day physically, but we're going to be covering some very beautiful places, principally Radha-kunda and Uddhava-kunda and Kusum-sarovara. But there's many places in Radha-kunda we're going to visit. So it's a exceptionally auspicious day and journey today for our parikrama. But we'll have our kirtan first.
Nama Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya
Another one more come to sit there.
Sri Sima Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Bhaskacharya Shotarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Nordashaya Bhutale Shri Manvani Pragyana Dekshava Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Swati Namine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashani Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vrinda Vandite Triloka Shokaharini Prashanna Vakta Panchadeya Kunja Vilasini Rajendra Bhanarandini Rajendra Sura Sanjate Radha-kunda Srihama Pripata Raksha-bhajanam Ashoka Vriksha-vallari Vitana-nanda-pasite Pravala-pala-pallava Pravari-rangitore Parabhaya-spuratare Prabhuta-sampadalaye Radha-kunda Srihama Pripata-raksha-bhajanam Ananta-mangala Prasanga-mangala Ruvam Sarvam Sasangama Atane Nirantaram Vashikita Pradipinandarangane Radha-kunda Sri-ramam Kripa-jatasya-bhajanam Adishvara-jambala Pradipta-dona-vigrahe Mukha-prabha-parasvano-visaradendu-mangale Vichitra-chitra-sanchara-chatora-savalochane Radha-kunda Kripa-jatasya-bhajanam Nagati-yogane Pramodamana-mangite Priyanuragalandite Kala-vilasa-mangite Ananya-ganya-kunjara-jatavate-rikovite Radha-kunda Kripa-jatasya-bhajanam Bhava-gira-gira-hara-bhusite Prabhuta-sarta-tumba-tumba-kumbhi-kumbha-sustani Prashasta-manda-hasya-chota-purna-sautya-sagare Kadaya-kari-siyama Kripa-jatasya-bhajanam Radha-vallari Taranga-ranga-dolare Radha-kravasya-lola-lochana-lochana Radha-lulam-nilam-nilam-mohanashite Radha-kari-siyama Kripa-jatasya-bhajanam Kanchita Trirekadambukankale Visuddhamantarinulandiratnatirti Kalola Nila Kuntala Vasuna Dushakamsite Narayani Sasiyama Nandamana Pushpa-mekala-gule Prashasta-vandamantari Jala-jala-jala-jala Harinja-sundar-nitya-karo-haso-manarate Radha-kari-siyama Kripa-jatasya-bhajanam Mandanadamansunuparavamasvarat Samajara-jamansara-sanitvanadidorave Ilola-hena-malavi-vidam-vicharu-chandane Radha-kari-siyama Kripa-jatasya-bhajanam Vishnu-lokanam-padma-jatite Parasiddhi-riddhi-asapadam-purinate Radha-kari-siyama Kripa-jatasya-bhajanam Sareshwari, Sareshwari, Sureshwari, Viveda-bhavaneshwari, Ramanasya Sureshwari, Rameshwari, Rameshwari, Ramona-pavaneshwari, Rameshwari, Radhike, Radhike, Namostute, Mama-yutam Saram, Nishamya-bharanam, Kripa-jatasya-bhajanam Pavekta-deva sanchita Sri-rupa-kamanasanam Pavekta-deva-mandalam Paveshwanam Radha-kari-siyama Kripa-jatasya Bhajanam
Charuvaktra-mandala Sukarna-ratna-kundala Suchachitanga-chandanam Namami Nandanandanam Dirganetra-pankajam Shikishikam-dhamurvacham Ananga-koti-bhavanam Namami Nandanandanam Surasikagra-moktikam Svatyanta-danta-pantikam Navam-mudam-dachikranam Namami Nandanandanam Karena-vena-ranjitam Yati-kavinda-ganjitam Ukula-vinda-sobanam Namami Nandanandanam Srivangadeha-sundaram Nakaduti-sudakaram Amulya-ratna-bhushanam Namami Nandanandanam Sugandha-anga-soravam Prolo-virajikausubam Puran-srivatsalamshanam Namami Nandanandanam Ravanam Suragaram Vilasanudavasasam Surendravashanam Namami Nandanandanam Rajangana Sudayakam Sada Sukha Pradayakam Jagannana Pralobanam Namami Nandanandanam Srinandanandanastakam Tateya Shradhayam Krita Tere Baba Mustaram Labetadan Priyunatam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Gaur Hari Bol.
Jai Shishi Guru Garanga Ganhavika Giridhari Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai Radha Govinda Dev Ki Jai Radha Gopinath Ju Ki Jai Shrimati Radharani Vrishabhanandini Vadeshwari Ki Jai Nityananda Rai Ki Jai Satchinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarzara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarzara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mahabhagavat Paramahamsa Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan Gaudiya Acharya Ki Jai. Jai Srila Vishnath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya Ki Jai. Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai. Jai Swarab Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haras Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikha Hol Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Jamuna Ki Jai. Brihat Mridanga Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Nam Bhajan Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Ki Jai. Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Gopishwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Punamasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Antadweep, Mayapur, Simantadweep, Gautamdweep, Madhudweep, Koladweep, Ritujit, Janadweep, Modunweep, Rudradweep, Atmaka Navadweep Dham Ki Jai. Bandiravan, Badaravan, Vailvan, Lohavan, Mahavan, Madhuvan, Talvan, Kamudvan, Bahulavan, Vrindavan, Kadiavan, Kamyavan, Vraja-mandala Ki Jai. Urja Brat Ki Jai, Damada Brat Ki Jai, Niyama Seva Ki Jai, Chatumasya Brat Ki Jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Gauda Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantamana Petyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Tarabo Virinustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Munimanatoshmi Anapita Chirim Chirat Kuruna Varatino Kalo Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundaratu Dikatam Vasadipita Sada Hridare Kandare Spadatu Vasachinandanaha Bhaktiya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Mayitvam Sharanam Prabhana Brinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Baradram Tato Mamanasti Katina Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Rate Tvam Nayamam Charantikam. And first of all, offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimar Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimar Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And all our Rupanuga Guru Vargya my Dandavat Pranams, and all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat Pranams to all of you. So we are residing, we can imagine, in our Giridhari Gaudiya Math today, even though there's problems, etc., with various camps occupying it and so on. But we should appreciate these things are all temporary and will probably pass within time. They will all evolve into their comfortable places eventually, for sure. So we are camping in our Giridhari Gaudiya Math because most of you probably listening will be more familiar with that accommodation. So we're going to leave early this morning. We left before breakfast. We left around about 6:30 after Mangalarti and when it was light, etc. And we didn't take breakfast because generally on this day, as we walk through the village of Govardhan back onto the Parikrama path, we come to the house of one very munificent, kind disciple of my Gurudev. And he would always invite our whole party up into his house, which usually consisted of, by this stage of the Parikrama, perhaps about 2,500 people. Anyway, we'd all climb up and he'd sit us down, he'd give us samosas and some sauce with the samosa, sometimes a little bit of khichdi as well. But this was, and some dahi. But this was a real brijbasi type of breakfast and hospitality. So we were always appreciative of that. And then we would carry on with our kirtan, our parikrama, and we would go perhaps 2.5, 3 kilometers to Uddhava-kunda. Uddhava-kunda is going to be our first stop today on the Parikrama trail. So we've been walking with Giriraj on our right the whole time up, and Giriraj is not really visible in this part. She's actually sunk into the ground in either because of the curse of Pulastya Rishi or because of a feeling of separation from Radha and Krishna. How can Girirani remain when even Mahaprabhu has disappeared? So we are appreciating the speciality of being next to Giriraj, because yesterday we were we were in our temple glorifying for the last 3 days the different acharyas. So now we've come out again into the field with the mercy of our acharyas. It's only by the mercy of these acharyas that we're able to perform this parikrama. Don't doubt it for a second. They are completely pulling the strings, so to speak, of all of this. So we've reached this divine location of Uddhava-kunda, and we come in through a small temple. There's a beautiful deity of Radha and Krishna on the altar, and a deity of Uddhava also. And we come in and we go down some steep steps and we come into a very well-kept kund. It's not a big kund. It's quite a smallish kund, but it's because it's small, I think it's been able to be maintained very nicely. And it has beautiful, aisles coming out into the middle of the kund, etc. It's a very, very attractive place, especially in this early morning time when we reach there, perhaps at 7:30ish, before 7:30 even. So still there's that morning magical light in the sky. It's very nice because now the sun is rising later, of course, because we're getting into the winter season. So we all take achaman from that kund and we sit ourselves around that kund. And now to hear the pastime and glories of this kund, it is very extensive. I'm not going to speak so much, but we'll set the scene at least, because tomorrow or the next day we have to decide whether we're going to honor Gopastami, which is tomorrow, or, well, we'll honor Gopastami anyway because it's tomorrow, or will we just follow the Parikrama schedule and go to Nandagaon, There's Nandagan, Lalita Kund, Uddhava-kunda, so many special places. So we'll have to figure out exactly what we're going to do tomorrow. But we'll discuss when we come to Uddhava-kunda many of the pastimes of about Uddhava. But here we can just appreciate the personality of Uddhava. Who was he in Krishna's pastimes? Uddhava. We are now in Uddhava-kunda, and probably tomorrow or the next day we will go to Nandagan, which will be Uddhava-kunda. So Uddhava Prabhu is a disciple directly of Brihaspati. Brihaspati is the spiritual master of the Devas, and the particular quality of Brihaspati, he's described as being Brahman realized. This is his quality. So his disciple is also his excellent disciple. He's not just an ordinary. Uddhava is described as being a Jnani Bhakta. What is a Jnani Bhakta? It doesn't mean a Jnani. A Jnani is someone who is wanting mukti or liberation. That's the fruit of a Jnani Bhakta. A Jnani. But a Jnani Bhakta is someone who has great Aishwarya for the Lord, and his knowledge is of the Lord's opulence. And that's what's keeping him separate from an intimate relationship, because his knowledge of Krishna and his greatness, like Bhishma Dev, is also a Jnani Bhakta. Jad Bharat was also, or Bharat Maharaj was also a Jnani Bhakta. So Prahlad also is a Jnani Bhakta, because they see the Aishwarya prominently and not the intimate sweetness, that there's not that connection there. So Uddhava is like this, even though Uddhava has such a exemplary relationship with Krishna. We see he's Krishna's cousin brother. Uddhava's grandfather is Surya Sen. Surya Sen is the father of Vasudeva, who is the father of Krishna in Mathura, Mathuresh Krishna. He's coming in this line, and Surya Sen is his father is Deva Maida. Deva Maida is the patriarch, so to speak, and then from Deva Maida come two sons. One is Surya Sen and the other is Parjanya. So the Parjanya line comes to Nanda Baba, and the Surya Sen line comes to Vasudeva and Krishna. But Vasudeva has 8 or 9 brothers, and one of those brothers is called Deva Bhag. Deva Bhag is the name of his brother, and he has a son called Uddhava. So Uddhava and Krishna are cousin brothers. They're related to each other. Uddhava is younger than Krishna, but Uddhava, from his very childhood, was enamored by the beauty and speciality and potency of Krishna. He only saw Krishna as like Dwarkadish Krishna or Mathuresh Krishna. He doesn't see him as Brajendranandan Krishna, which is why his particular pastime is so unique and special, because he comes to Vrindavan, where only the Madhurya bhaktas, the Madhurya souls can actually enter into the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. But here is Uddhava. He's actually been sent by Krishna as a messenger. When Krishna came back from Ujjain, from his schooling with Sandipani Muni at the Gurukul there, after 64 days of studying the 64 arts, the 64 qualities, etc., he absorbed all of that, and then he came back with Balaram, and it's described that Krishna was sitting on the roof in Mathura. Krishna's left Vrindavan. The Brijabasis are in extreme separation mood from Krishna, and Krishna is in his heart reciprocating with them completely, and he's feeling that he wants to send a messenger. He wants to send somebody there to express his feelings to them, especially to the gopis. And as he's thinking like this on the roof in Mathura Palace, then suddenly Uddhav appears, and then he realizes Uddhav is the perfect messenger. Uddhav is called a mantri. He's the main minister, we can say, of or advisor to the Yadavs and Brishnis and Bhojas, etc. in Mathura. He's the main advisor, the minister, the mantri. And because he's so brilliant, if he's a disciple of Brihaspati, it means his knowledge is very, very extensive. He knows, because he has a beautiful form, he looks like Krishna. He would wear Krishna's clothes. When he was a child, he would see what Krishna was wearing and he would imitate Krishna. And he would have deities of Krishna. He would worship Krishna. It's described in the Bhagavatam that even when his mother would call him for breakfast, he wouldn't come because he was so engrossed in worshipping his deities of Krishna and Balaram. So this is his mood, completely submissive and affectionate towards Krishna, but not Madhurya mood. It's a difference in mood. We have to appreciate that. It's Dwarka. This makes the speciality of Uddhav. So Uddhav appears on the rooftop of Mathura, and Krishna takes his hand and begins to express his feelings of separation from Vrindavan. What does Uddhav know of this? Uddhav practically knows nothing, really, of the exceptional prem of the Brijbasis for Krishna. The Mathuravasis and the Dwarkavasis are both thinking that they have the most prem in existence for Krishna. No one loves Krishna more than us. Krishna wanted to purify that misconception and put the Brijbasis in their minds above their love and affection for Krishna. They were very proud that Krishna was now residing in Mathura, and they thought that it's because Krishna loves us the most. Krishna loves it here the most in Mathura. But Krishna's heart was always hankering for Vrindavan. So Krishna is sharing this something with Uddhav. And then he expresses to Uddhav, he wants him to go to Vrindavan and carry some messages. It's not just one message, it's many, many messages. And they're not written, they're spoken into his heart. Brihaspati, Uddhav, of course, is capable of memorizing all these intimate messages perfectly. So he requests Uddhav to please go and comfort the residents of Vrindavan because they're missing him so much. Actually, it's not just the residents, it's the cows, or the cows are included in it's the birds, it's the trees, it's the river Jamuna, everything in Braj. The enemy of separation, the demon of separation is there, which the Brijbasis are contending with. Krishna kills many demons, but this demon of separation, he lets remain for some time because he knows that even in the separation moods, this is churning the affectionate attraction of the Brijbasis even more towards Krishna. When the separation becomes even more intense, then their attraction to Krishna becomes more intense. This is all part of the play, we can say, of this Madhurya realm. There's many, many aspects to this, but I'm just touching on a few because we're sitting here in Uddhava-kunda. So we're remembering Uddhav, who came to this very place. That's why this kund was manifested. This particular kund where we're sitting was manifested by Brajranabha, the great grandson of Krishna directly. He came here, and under the order of Sandilya Rishi and the other rishis, they requested him to manifest this kund in remembrance of Uddhav, because all the Brijbasis were so grateful when Uddhav came to Vrindavan. He came riding that same chariot that Akrura came to pick up Krishna and Balaram. What is that chariot? It's the Rolls Royce of all the chariots. It's Kamsa's chariot. Kamsa was the one who built this. Who knows what it looked like, but it must have been a pretty amazing chariot. But Akrura was given this chariot to come, and pick up Krishna and Balaram. And similarly, Uddhav takes this same chariot to Braj to pacify the residents. And he comes, it's described very beautiful in the 10th canto, in the 46th chapter of the 10th canto. It's described how Uddhav, he comes into Braj on evening time, and all the gopis are singing beautiful songs. The Brahmins are lighting their fires. The gopas and the gopis, also, they're milking all the cows. The cows are in the field and they're rutting. And there's such a festive atmosphere. Krishna is allowing Uddhav to see what it's like when he's there. He's given him an impression. He's created an impression for Uddhav to see what it's like when he's there, the happiness and the joy and the speciality. So Uddhav is seeing all this like a spurti, is what he's actually witnessing when he comes in on the chariot at evening time. And then he sees Krishna himself directly stepping out of a doorway. So what does Uddhav do, who's a well-trained devotee? Just like our ISKCON group, immediately he offers Dandavat pranams. But you don't offer Dandavats in Braj. That's not how they greet each other in Braj. There's no Aishwarya in Braj. So as soon as Uddhav does like that, the whole scene disappears and it all just becomes separation. The clouds and waves of this devastating separation mood are engulfing all of Braj. And then Uddhav, he makes his way to Nanda's palace and he stays with Nanda the whole evening. And Nanda has arranged, because he knows that Uddhav is coming. He understands in his heart that a messenger from Krishna will come. And it's a very, very beautiful description where Nanda Baba, he speaks about 12 verses in the Bhagavatam directly to Uddhav. And in one of those verses, he alludes that Krishna and Balaram, they can't be ordinary people. They can't be ordinary boys. Garga Rishi was there explaining that he's like Narayan. So Nanda Baba doesn't actually believe this at all. He knows that they're his sons. He has no Aishwarya. But he says amongst these 10 verses, a little bit of glorification of Krishna and Balaram in that mood of worship, of reverence, of honor. And Uddhav, he picks that one verse up, and then he starts to elaborate on that Aishwarya. Nanda Baba is weeping. Nanda Baba practically can't even say the name Krishna. Mother Yashoda, she's sitting off to the side. She has no words to say to anybody. All her tears have actually, they've all come out. She can't cry anymore. She's sitting like a stone figure, completely immersed in remembrance of Krishna alone, completely. How can she cope with this devastating separation? So she's not really like in the picture, so to speak. She's just sitting in a chair by the doorway and can't do anything. And it's Nanda Baba who has his senses somewhat together. Why? Because it's described that Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna is actually greater than Nanda Baba's love for Krishna. How can Mother Yashoda speak when her darling of her life is not there with her? But Nanda Baba, he's able to keep something together. So he's ordered a Brahmin to bring some rice, some sweet rice. But my Gurudev always explains there wasn't even sugar in the sweet rice that the Brahmin brought for Uddhav. Nothing is sweet in Braj because Krishna is not there. Everything is just devastating separation. So then Uddhav, he is in confusion because he thinks, shall I congratulate Nanda Baba on the amount and abundance of prem he has for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna? Shall I tell him how great is his love and prem? Or shall I try to console his separation mood? He doesn't quite know which way to go because he knows shastrically that having these feelings of separation is very, very exalted and very special. But he doesn't know quite. Then he starts to glorify Krishna. He says to Nanda Baba, of course you know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not really your son. And Nanda Baba is thinking, what's wrong with this person? He's not altogether. I mean, doesn't he know he's my son? But Nanda Baba can't really speak. He's so choked up with remembrance of Krishna. And then Uddhav, he goes on the whole night glorifying Krishna as that Supreme Lord and says we should be just rendering service to that Krishna. This will please Krishna. And Nanda Baba, he's only half listening now. He's in his own space. You can read in the 46th chapter. It's very, very beautiful, this conversation. And then it's described that Uddhav and Nanda Baba, they're together the whole night. And Uddhav basically is glorifying Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's very wonderful for our progress at this particular time, coming from the teachings of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who trained us so beautifully and made us understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without that platform, we can't go further than that. Unless we've got that solidly fixed, our faith, then how can you come to the more esoteric teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and understand the mood of Madhurya in Vrindavan, where Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead? My Gurudev used to say regularly, your Prabhupada has come to teach you that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I've come to teach you that he's not. So it's radical appreciation, but when you examine it and open it out, you can appreciate the synchronicity of it. You can appreciate where everything is actually evolving to. It's evolving to the highest state of sweetness in relationship with Krishna, which doesn't include Aishwarya. If the Aishwarya remains, then Rag Marg cannot manifest. Because what is the quality of Aishwarya? It's fear. The quality of Vaidhi Bhakti is governed by fear. You're fearful of not getting the results, so I come to Mangalati. Of not getting the results, so I follow my Ekadashi. Of not getting the results, so I chant my Harinam. It's all prompted by this mood of fear. Whereas the path of Rag, that spontaneous attraction, this is all described by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada also. He describes this beautifully in Nectar Devotion. Then this is governed by a mood of greed. I am just so anxious to be with my long lost Lord, who I haven't seen for how many births. I haven't actually seen him ever, because we've come from this Tatashta stage. But we've heard about Krishna. So something has manifested in the heart about Krishna. But when this hunger, this intensity of greed rises sufficiently, then the prohibitions and inhibitions of Vaidhi Marg melt away under the pressure of this enthusiastic greed to actually have darshan of Krishna, to see Krishna, to be with Krishna. Nothing else matters. I just want to be with Krishna. So this is the great distinction. So Uddhav, he's in this mood of Vaidhi Marg, and he's talking to Nanda Baba, who is the epitome of Vatsalya Bhav, all night. And then it's described in the morning time, my Gurudev describes that Uddhav, he goes to one kund. There's a Krishna kund in Nandagaon. We're going to discuss this again, but from a different perspective when we come to Uddhav-keri in Nandagaon. Today we're sitting in Uddhava-kunda, and we're basically remembering the moods and qualities of Uddhav, this personality. So I'm trying to keep the two pastimes a little bit separate, but they're not really separate, because the nature of Uddhav coming to Vrindavan is simply to give these messages ultimately to the Gopis. So when Uddhav comes down to Krishna Kund in the morning, now we start on the 47th chapter, and this is called Brahmaragit. And Uddhav goes, he bathes in that kund, and then he looks up and he sees a forest off to his right, and that forest is filled with huge kadamba trees, powerful, big, beautiful trees. And he sees through the trees within the space, he sees there's some illumination deep in the trees. And he realizes, oh, these are the Gopis. The Gopis are all there. This is where the Gopis left Krishna. When Krishna went on the chariot with Akrura, they remained in that place of Uddhava for 100 years. They didn't go back to their households. Jiva Goswami suggests that perhaps replicas went back to their households, but the actual Gopis, they remained there. They could not move. It's described like puppets in a landscape. This is the Howard description of it. So Uddhav, he sees them there. So then he comes through to meet with the Gopis because he has these messages. He has many messages. We won't discuss more than this at this point, because when we go to Uddhava, either tomorrow or the day after, then all of this pastime will be opened out fully, because this pastime is so heart-touching and special. But the point is that Uddhav, he was so much in awe of the Gopis' prem for Krishna, and my Gurudev regularly described that like someone looking up at a mountain, if they have a turban or a hat on, the hat drops off the back because they're looking so high up at the height of the Gopis' prem. Because Uddhav is thinking, oh, my prem for Krishna is very high. Krishna wanted to purify that misconception because he knows that Uddhav will go back to Dwarka, because in the meantime, the Mathuravasis are going to be transferred across to Dwarka. This will be actually, in fact, after 18 years when Jarasandha has defeated all the armies and so on. They'll be transferred to, and he wants Uddhav to proclaim the glories of the love of the residents of Braj to the Dwarkavasis. He wants to give them that. He wants them all to know how much the Dwarkavasis love, how much the Brijavasis love Krishna. Especially he wants them to know how much the Gopis love Krishna. He wants to advertise their love because their love is nirmala. It's the purest conception of love in existence. So he wants to magnify that into the hearts of the Dwarkavasis to some degree. He wants to give them that appreciation. So this is what Uddhava has come to do. And while Uddhava is there, he says this beautiful verse as Asam Aho Charanareno Jusam Aham Shyam, that all the words of the Gopis that have ever been spoken before, that ever will be spoken, and in the present that will be spoken, will purify all the three worlds. This is the nature of the words, the potency of the Gopis. And in this verse, Uddhav is praying that he will take birth as a blade of grass or a shrub in Vrindavan. Asam aho charanareno jusam aham shyam. This is begging for this birth as a resident of Vrindavan, but as a blade of grass, which means ultimately more like a Shantaras mood, actually, because a blade of grass is like neutral. So it's more like Shanta. So this is the nature of Vaikuntha Shantaras. You understand? Vaikuntha has 2.5 rasas. Shantaras, Dasyaras, little bit of Sakyaras. It doesn't have this Madhurya sweetness there. So Uddhav, he's experiencing this like neutral desire to become like a bush or a blade of grass. And he glorifies Nanda Baba. What's that? Vande Nanda Rajashrinam Padarenam Abhikshanam Yasham Harikatot Gitam Punati Bhuvana Triyam. That the Gopis Kirtan purifies all the three worlds in existence. The women of Nanda Baba's village. So Uddhav, he's glorifying the Brijbasis so much. And there's a story that we'll probably hear in Kusum-sarovara, when actually Uddhav, he manifests later on due to the kirtan of the queens of Dwarka, because they actually come here afterwards. When Brajanaba comes here, after Krishna has left, after all his associates have left, Brajanaba comes here, he establishes this kund, and there's a tremendous kirtan that takes place. But you're going to say this pastime in Kusum-sarovara. But in Kusum-sarovara, we should understand that Uddhava-kunda is totally adjacent to Kusum-sarovara. There, if you just standing in Uddhava-kunda and you walk perhaps 200 or 300 yards, you'll be in Kusum-sarovara. Because at this point, Govardhan Hill is very, very narrow. Actually, she's not a hill, she's under the ground, but it's very narrow. So Kusum-sarovara and Uddhava-kunda are very much connected. So it's in Kusum-sarovara that that Uddhav is purported to have manifested as a kripa, or as the grasses are there in Kusum-sarovara. There's one beautiful temple of in Kusum-sarovara there, with a beautiful form of Uddhav there. So this is right next to Uddhava-kunda. So in this place, we remember all of these different aspects and qualities of Uddhav. How actually when he comes and meets the gopis are thinking, this is how it's described by the acharyas, that, oh, who is this person who's come on the royal chariot from Kamsa? Is it Akrura who's come again? Has he not done enough damage? Now does he want our flesh to offer in oblations to Kamsa? The gopis are not really looking forward to meeting who this person is until they see him. And then when they see him, they see, he looks just like Krishna. He's wearing the same yellow dhoti. He's wearing the same pitamba. He has the same beautiful black wavy hair. He has lotus-like eyes. He looks like Krishna, but he's not Krishna. And all the gopis, they all gather around and they begin to converse with Uddhav. And Uddhav begins to understand. And then there's the whole pastime of Brahmaragit, which we will discuss in Uddhav-kyari. And then Uddhav is beginning to realize the nature or extremity of the Brijabasi's prem, which so much eclipses and surpasses the prem of the Dwarkavasis or Mathuravasis. This is what Krishna wanted to establish, as well as give his messages of consolation to the gopis. The gopis needed to be consoled. They were within a hairbreadth whisper of leaving their bodies due to separation. So these are just some hints about the personality and speciality of Uddhav. The name Uddhav itself means festival of joy. That's what the name means, festival of joy. He had the ability to create a festival of joy wherever he went. This is why Krishna sent him. This is why all the Brijbasis were very merciful to Uddhav. And Uddhav was able to connect in a very significant way, but in a way that is related to a Jnani Bhakta of worship and in the opulent mood, not in the Madhurya mood, because his Staibhav is not like that. It doesn't matter how much influence he can have there, his Staibhav is fixed. In Dwarka, he's a Dwarkavasi. And in Dwarka, we know that the residents, they always think of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or as the Supersoul, or as the greatest person they've ever known. They always think of him in this way. So it's that greatness, that Aishwarya, which inhibits their closeness of intimacy. So all this, to me, makes perfect logical sense. But it seems like so many studying these texts don't catch this enormity of difference between Madhurya and Aishwarya. If we don't appreciate this huge gulf of difference between Madhurya and Aishwarya, then we can never consider ourselves fully a Madhyam Bhakta. We haven't really come off the Kanishta stage if we're not able to appreciate these huge distinctions between what is Aishwarya Bhav and what is Madhurya Bhav. In Madhurya Bhav, the Brijbasis know that Krishna utterly depends on them for his existence. They feed him, nourish him, hold him, cajole him, joke with him. They're supporting him completely. They are only thinking of Krishna's pleasure, how to nourish Krishna. Whereas the Dwarkavasis are thinking, Krishna is our supreme Lord. We are depending on Krishna. The Brijbasis know that Krishna depends on them. It's such a huge distinction. How wonderful is spiritual life that will explain all these nuances, these distinctions between Aishwarya and Madhurya. And it was only by the mercy of Mahaprabhu that all of these revelations have been opened up. It's only by his mercy, because without the consideration or acceptance of Parakya smashes to pieces all the idea about Dharma. Dharma, Artha, Karma, Moksha is completely smashed by the conception of Parakya, that the Supreme Lord will dance with other men's wives. This just breaks it in half. So what are you left with? To understand what is the nature of that Parakya. In Dwarka, they can't even consider that. Huge distinction. So Mahaprabhu has come himself, the Supreme Lord, come to explain and delineate exactly what is the nature of Parakya Ras and how it is completely acceptable for Krishna's pastimes. Actually, all the gopis are his eternal associates. They're all his eternal potencies. That's who they all are. They're all his own individual potencies. And they've manifested the forms of gopis. But the gopis' consciousnesses are that they have husbands, and because of their extreme affection towards Krishna, they're going to leave their family and go to the forest in the night and associate with this darling Krishna, because that loving attraction is more powerful than their family. This is the point. The idea of swakya is restrictive to the household, rules and regulations, etc. There's some fear there in that place. But Parakya, you've busted open by the attraction of this beautiful person. So Uddhav is coming from a Dwarka mentality, we can say, completely. And he's just completely blown away by what he sees. He can practically not even believe what he's seeing. His appreciation for the love of the Brijbasis becomes so high, and his worship of them so much so that he simply wants to take birth as a blade of grass so he can catch some foot dust of the gopis. That's how high his appreciation is. So we've come today to Uddhava-kunda, and we hear something of the personality of Uddhava. So this is as much as I want to really say today, because unless we go to Uddhava-kunda, where we'll go either tomorrow or the day after, depending, because on the schedule it's written for tomorrow, Nandagan, but actually tomorrow is Gopastami, so we have to honor this as well. So perhaps we will honor Gopastami tomorrow, and the next day we'll go to Nandagan and hear about Uddhava-kunda and the rest of this divine pastime, which is so exceptional. It's like the bridge between Madhurya and Aishwarya. This pastime takes place after Krishna has left Mathura. Krishna leaves Mathura in about the 35th, 37th chapter, I think it is. He leaves. But then this pastime is described in 10 chapters later. This is after the killing of Kamsa. But it's like a bridge between Madhurya and Aishwarya, this personality of Uddhava. He's representing, because he's such a qualified personality. He's the mantri, he's the minister. For he advises even Krishna. When Krishna wants to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice, still Jarasandha is in his own glory, and he has to be purified. How are they going to do that? As well as attend the Rajasuya sacrifice. So Krishna asks Uddhav, what shall we do? He's asking Uddhav. This is how prominent Uddhav is as a minister. And Uddhav advises, well, first you should kill Jarasandha and then come to the Rajasuya sacrifice. And Krishna takes this advice. He follows this advice. And Uddhav's relationship later on with Krishna, when Krishna leaves this world, when he's on his way to that that Pundarik ashram, where they have the fratricidal war with in the 11th canto, when Krishna dissolves all his family members. He sent Uddhav to go to Badrik ashram to enliven the rishis and sages there. But Uddhav becomes too heartbroken in separation. He comes back and he meets Krishna after he's annihilated all his millions and millions of family members. About 520 million family members have just been slaughtered. And Krishna's sitting under a peepal tree, preparing to leave this world himself. Then Uddhav meets him again at that point. And Maitreya Rishi comes at that time also. So this is Uddhav again, right at the very end. So Uddhav is very prominent throughout. So we're sitting now in Uddhava-kunda, and we're remembering with great honor all the different glories of this personality, Uddhav, and what he represents in the Leelas of Krishna, and how he brings the two considerations of Madhurya and Aishwarya. He brings the Madhurya a little bit to Dwarka. So this is Uddhava-kunda. So Uddhava-kunda ki jai, Gold Premanandi.
In Goloka Vrindavan, there's, I heard you say one time, there's a part where Satyabhama is being worshipped with Krishna in Svakiya
Nava
Ras.
Vrindavan. This one you're talking about?
In Goloka Vrindavan?
Yes.
Yeah. And the mood there is of Svakiya,
Yes.
right? And that's a part within Goloka Vrindavan, right?
Golok and Gokul are two different prakoshts, it's called, or chambers. So in Golok, there is that aspect of Swakiya is present. So there are many chambers, because all of these different things we're talking about, they have whole conceptions of Leelas manifesting around those conceptions. Like when you read Gopal Champu, for example, Radha and Krishna are married. When Madhu, Madhu the Nalagriva, Manigriva, Madhu Smita, Madhu Snigdha, Snigdha and Madhukanta. When they are relating the Gopal Champu, then Radha and Krishna are sitting together like they're married. So it's in a different prakosht, Prabhu, is the answer to your question. It's a different chamber. It's not the same chamber as Gokul. It's fascinating. It gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Really. I'll explain more afterwards. Nice question. It's a wonderful topic. We have to have these questions, otherwise how can we open up the different topics? But now we're going to go to Radha Kund, which is very close by, and we leave Uddhava-kunda with a nice parikrama, and we come, it's perhaps a kilometer altogether. And in the past, we've actually, yes, different situations, but then we cross the canal of the Jamuna, and then we come into Radha-kunda. So Radha-kunda is quite a large parikrama, so I'm going to have to start moving along here quite quickly. So we come into, if you're familiar with the parikrama path, where I'm going to describe, that'll be nice, and I'll explain as much as I can if you're not familiar with it. So we come in on the parikrama trail, and we come in on the southern western side into Radha-kunda. Radha-kunda is, if it's straight in front of us, that's north. So we've come southwest, and we come in the narrow gully, etc. And the first place we come to on this route, because we're not coming in through the principal main entrance where Kundeshwara is, Lord Shiva. We haven't come in that road. We've come in a back road. And here we come to the temple of Radha Damodar. This is the temple directly where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he established this deity. He established this temple himself, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And it has Radha Kunja Bihari on the altar. Very large, beautiful form of Radha Kunja Bihari. So this is the temple, but it's called the Radha Damodar temple, but it's still Kunja Bihari dominating the altar. And they have beautiful sitting place for Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. A very nice picture here. And we come in and we can circumambulate that deity. We can take Charanamrita. This is for me anyway, and for many of my Gurudev's followers, will be a special temple because we all sat down here one time in the courtyard. And my Gurudev, he called us all very close. At that time must have been about 500-600 devotees, mostly Westerners. And he says now, because he's coming into the contentious Radha Kund with all the Babas and so on. So he says, now I want to give you all your Siddha Pranali. So he called us all very, very close to him, all of us. And he said, now listen to me carefully and I'll give you your Siddha Pranali. Trinadapi Sunishena, Tanorapi Suhichena, Amanina Manadena, Kirtanya Sadhari. This is the Siddha Pranali of the those sadhaks who are aspiring for Radha Dasyam. This is the mantra. You chant this mantra, and then all fortune will be revealed to you. But this is our Siddha Pranali mantra. So my Gurudev revealed this very seriously. It wasn't like, it was the truth. And when we consider that, it's very beautiful. So now we offer our pranams to Radha Kunda Bihari, and we come back out again onto the little road that leads into Radha Kund. And we come in very closely to the Kund itself, and then we come onto the regular Radha Kund Parikrama Marg. So now we've come onto the regular Radha Kund Parikrama Marg that's going to circumambulate the whole of Radha Kund. And my Gurudev, he describes in one lecture about Radha Kund very beautifully. He gives a verse, Yata Radha Priya Vishnu. This is saying among all the gopis, Srimati Radhaji is Sri Krishna's principal pran balab and is thus the most dear to him. Similarly, Radhaji's dear Kund is also very dear to him. Then he also says in the Varaha Purana, Sarva Papa Haras Tirtam, Namaste Hari Muktida, Nama Kaivalya Natadya Radha Krishna Vidyani. O Sri Radha Kund, O Sri Krishna Kund, you destroy all sins and award one pointed prem. I bow down to you again and again. The Puranas are filled with innumerable descriptions of the glories of these two Kunds. In Brajavilas Stava, Srila Raghunath Das has said, Sri Vrindavan Pinipine, Suryam Api. This is saying, not even Sri Vrindavan, which is supremely delightful because of places like the rasa-filled Rasastali, or Shriman Govardhan, which is the arena of the nectarian ras, where the most confidential amorous pastimes, Keli Krid of the divine couple take place, are equal to even a shadow of a particle of the glories of Sri Radha Kund. What to speak of other pastime places within Vraj-mandala? I take shelter of this Radha Kund, which is more dear to Sri Mukunda than his own life. So just for a moment we can reflect on the manifestation of Radha Kund, how that Aristasura demon, who is one of the last demons, Keshi demon and Vyomasura are the very final demons, but Aristasura was just prior to that. So it's towards the end of Krishna's time in Vrindavan. But Arista, it's about a few months before the end. It must have been about a year actually before the end, because the pastimes in Radha Kund manifest after this Aristasura. So Aristasura comes into Braj and his horns are disturbing the clouds in the sky. He's so big and ferocious, and his tail is swirling around, and steam, smoke is coming from his nostrils. And Krishna, he very casually is standing in front of him and ready to challenge him. And Arista races towards Krishna, just like Keshi demon did. And Krishna, very easily, he just grabs his hind leg and throws him around, swings him around, and he just stumbles and rolls over, exactly like Keshi demon. And he stumbles in the dust. And Arista leaps up, infuriated that this young boy had been able to perform such an act. And then his anger is increased. And then he races towards Krishna with his horns down. Krishna just takes one of those horns and lifts him up, and it's described, he thrashes him like a wet rag and smashes him down. And then he takes out one of these horns, breaks it, and he plunges it into the head of Aristasura, taking his life. So this is the pastime of Aristasura. And then the Gopis, Krishna is feeling very satisfied that he's killed this huge demon, but the Gopis are saying, no, don't come near us now. You've just killed a bull. So what do you mean a bull? This was a demon in the shape of a bull. No. Even in the shape of a bull represents dharma. You've just killed this bull. You have to do renunciation for, you have to recompense for this. Penance. You have to do penance for this. So Krishna is saying, what shall I do? What shall I do? And then the Gopis, they say, you have to bathe in every holy river of the world. All the holy rivers are in Bharatvash. So Krishna says, no problem. So with his heel, he makes a kund with his heel. And then he calls, or he plays his flute, it's described both ways, all the holy rivers. They all manifest. And they all are so eager to actually perform service for Krishna. And then he requests them, you please fill up this kund. Then he fills all this kund with the holy waters from all over Bharatvash. And then he takes his bath in that kund. And then he turns to Radha and says, there, I have done that. But Radha, she's still not satisfied. She says, Radha, Krishna is saying, you can bathe in my kund. Radha says, no, I will make my own kund. Me and my Sakis, we will manifest our own kund. So one pastime is that they all break their bangles and they begin to excavate a kund. Another pastime is that one of the hoof prints of Arista has left a big impression that can begin the kund for Radha-kunda. And then Radharani and all the gopis, they form a chain to Manasi Ganga in Govardhan. And they start to bring pots from Manasi Ganga. And Krishna says, why don't you use the waters from my kund? And she says, no, we want our own water. And then Krishna calls all the holy rivers and says, please go and pacify Radha and beg that you can take form in her kund. So the holy rivers, very beautifully, they offer prayers to Sri Radha and they beg Sri Radha, please can we come and manifest in your kund? And Radharani, then she agrees because the prayers are so sweet and beautiful. Then the Sangam is manifest, and the wall of Krishna's kund breaks and all the waters rush through into Radha Kund. So then all the Sakis, they all bathe in Shama Kund and Krishna bathes in Radha Kund. And then Krishna declares at that time, this Radha Kund will become the most famous and potent holy place in the universe, in existence. So this Radha Kund where we have come is non-different completely to Radhika. It's not different to Radhika. So we must appreciate that. Many times, if you stay there for some time, you can see so many sadhaks, they just sit on the bank and just look at the kund, because the kund directly is Sri Radhika. It's directly liquid form of Radha Prem, Radha herself. And Shama Kund is the same, directly form of Krishna. So these two kunds are there for our purification. So now we want to do a parikrama if we have time. I'll try to go briefly. I've made a little book of the whole parikrama, and I put it on the WhatsApp group you can follow. And we're going to just walk around, see how long it takes. So there's a verse from the Upadeshamrita, and it's describing, first of all, Krishna yacha pranaya vasati prayosabhyo piradha. This is saying, after thorough deliberation on the matter, the sages have unanimously declared in the Padma Purana that just as amongst all the gopis, Srimati Radhika is the foremost object of Krishna's great love, in precisely the same way, this pond of hers is also the topmost object of his love. Upon one who simply bathes in its waters just once with great devotion, Sri Radha Kund bestows that rare treasure of Gopi Prem, which is so immensely difficult to attain, even for such dear devotees of Bhagavan as Narad, what to speak of ordinary sadhaks. But now Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he's described to us what does it mean to bathe in Radha Kund. Is it our subtle body that we're able to bathe in Radha Kund, or is it just our gross body? How much of a meditation are we able to internalize while we're bathing? And how much of a subtle bath will we be able to experience rather than just the gross? Of course, the gross is the beginning of it, but the subtle bath, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has explained, is the real purifying agent when we can purify our consciousnesses fully. Subtle means consciousness. So when I'm fully immersed in a mood of absolute savor to Sri Radhika, then those waters will purify us. So now we're walking around. We've come onto the Parikrama trail, and we're going to go around to our left. Follow the path. I'm going to assume you know the path, otherwise I won't be able to describe it. So we come around to the left, and the first thing we see is a beautiful darshan of the Kund directly. That darshan is facing, there's a beautiful deity from Manipur, a Gopal deity that one king had built there, and he wanted the Gopal deity to see the sun rising over the Kund. When it first manifested, on the eastern horizon, when the sun rises above the Kund, he wanted the deity to have total darshan of that first light of the sun. So he built a deity right there, and that deity faces right directly onto Radha Kund. So we have that place we can visit also, and then we have the Kund darshan itself, and we can offer prayers to the Kund at this place, because this will be our first darshan of Radha Kund. So there's this one prayer. Ha Shri Sarovara Sada Tvai Samadisha Prastema Saradameha Kalati Kamrange Tvam Chet Priyat Priyatamaiva Tayoritimam Hardasayatya Kripayama Machivitam Tvam. This is the first glorification. This is saying, O Radha Kund, my mistress is engaging in very secret and beautiful playful pastimes with her darling Krishna in the kunjas on your banks. You are so near and dear to them. Therefore I am taking shelter of you and pray for your mercy that you will show me my Swamini, who is my very life and soul. This is the first glorification we can offer. There are so many prayers to Radha Kund. It's very interesting, that first reference I made to the Upadeshamrita, verse 11, which is praying for, ultimately, in the commentators describing Manjari Bhav. And one interesting point to note, and if anyone wants to do the research on it and find something different, I'll be very happy to hear it. But I've searched through the folio program and seen how many times does our beloved Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada mention the word Manjari in the whole folio program. And it's once in this verse, the last verse of Upadeshamrita. That wasn't Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's mission, was to direct us in that direction. He was giving us Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as we've discussed. So this Manjari Bhav is very confidential, but nevertheless, of course, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada spoke on this, just as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did. We read that beautiful lecture yesterday to see that Sirup Siddhanti Maharaj mentioning what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati really wanted in his heart. So we come to this first darshan, and just a little bit past that first darshan, you can go down the steps here. There's many flower walla sellers of to do with the lamp deep to offer into Radha-kunda at that place. You can offer there. Or you can walk a little bit further around, and then you come to a place where there are many beggars sitting. But just behind them, there's like a buffalo walkway into the kund, because when this kund was manifested by Raghunath Das, the buffaloes still had to have access, and the cows, to the waters, etc. So you got these ramps all the way around, actually, where the animals could actually utilize the waters of Radha-kunda. So then just immediately past that first ramp, you come to the temple of Gopinath. And it's a small alleyway that comes in. And we see on the beautiful altar, there's Gopinath. And on his right is Sri Radhika. And on his left, which is normally reserved for Radhika, is Ananga Manjari. Radhika's younger sister is there. So this word Manjari is sometimes confusing to the devotees because it doesn't mean she's a Manjari. Her mood is actually Sambhog Ichamayi. That means she has a relationship with Krishna. Radharani sanctions that relationship. That is, she makes arrangement for Krishna to sport with Ananga Manjari. That means she's not a Manjari as we describe Manjaris. She's like a Saki, but her name is Ananga Manjari, the younger sister of Radhika. So she's there on the altar with Gopinath and Radhika. Radhika is here, Ananga Manjari is here, and Gopinath is in the center. So then after this darshan, if you're looking at the deity, then you go to your left and you come through a very small door and you come out the door, and there's Janava Mata's sitting places there. Janava Mata, we immediately think of Nityananda Prabhu. There's a little shrine on the top of this sitting place with a picture of Nityananda also. But we remember Janava Mata. Now, of course, Janava Mata is non-different to Ananga Manjari. So there's some connection here between Ananga Manjari on the altar and Ananga Manjari or Janava Devi's sitting place, swimming place, sitting place, bathing place. It's her bathing place. And historically, straight out into the middle of the gut from here is Swananda Sukata Kunj, which is the island of Ananga Manjari. It doesn't exist now, but previously during Krishna's manifest pastimes, this Kunja, Swananda Sukata Kunj, was there right in front of where Janava Mata's sitting place is. So it's all connected to Janava Mata and Sri Radhika. Understand the nature of this particular spot where we're standing. So then we come back from, we circumambulate Janava Devi's sitting place, and then we don't go back in through the same small door we just came out from the Mandir, Gopinath temple. We walk along the side of the banks of Radha-kunda. This place, it's very easy for us to perform Archaman of Radha-kunda. We can put some Archaman drops on our head and offer more prayers to Sri Radhika from there, or Radha-kunda from there. And then we climb back up the steps and we walk along a little bit, and there's another small door leading up some steps. And then we come in to the Pushpa Samadhi, this large, beautiful marble, Samadhi of Raghunath Das Goswami. So Raghunath Das, we know, is the Prayojan Acharya. And who is the Prayojan Ishtadev? It's Gopinath. So we have Gopinath here in this mandir, and we have Raghunath Das in the mandir. This is the dynamic of it. So we circumambulate Raghunath Das here. This is his Pushpa Samadhi. This is not his complete Samadhi. So then from there, we come back out onto the Parikrama trail of Radha Kund. We've gone in one door into the Gopinath temple, and then we've come up a little bit and we've come out from another door of this Gopinath temple. Are you all with me? Do you understand where we're going? Okay. So you come out of that small door, and then we walk around a little bit, and we come to like a circular stand off the side in the right, and then we come just through a little gully, and we come into Radha Govinda, the Radha Govinda Mandir. Of course, all these deities, Radha Govinda, Madan Mohan, Gopinath, they all actually stayed here when they were being transported in fear of the Muslims, just like we described in Kamyavan. Those deities, those Pratibhu deities, sprang up after the original deities stayed there for a few nights. Similarly, these deities also sprang up after the original deities stayed here. So Gopinath stayed here where we've just been. Now we're coming into where Radha and Govinda were. And certainly Rupa Goswami was there simultaneously. And there's a beautiful painting on the wall there we can see, worshipping Rupa Goswami. So when we see Raghunath just previously, we can offer prayers to Raghunath. And then this is what this little book actually describes, that each personality or each place we come to, it's just a quick reference to various prayers that we can offer. So when we were in front of Gopinath, for example, we can offer Shriman Rasara Sambrambi, Vamsivat Vadasita, Karsana Vanyaswani Gopi, Gopinath Striyastuna. We can chant this pranam mantra to Gopinath. And when we're with Nityananda, we can chant Nityananda Namastuste, Premananda Pradayane, Kali Kalmasyana Saya, Janava Pataye Namaha. We can pranams to Janava Devi. And then when we're in front of Raghunath Das, we can chant this. We've come into Govinda Kund now. So now we're going to glorify Rupa Goswami and this Hadevi Kaku Baragat Gadayad Yavacha. This beautiful verse is here. We can glorify Sri Radhika as Rupa Goswami is glorifying her. Because these mantras, when we're able to chant them nicely in front of these Thakurjis, are very, very effective and potent for our Parikrama. The mantras, my Gurudev used to say, are the most powerful prayers that we can offer. They're very, very potent. So this is what really this little book has to offer. And then we are in front of Radha Govinda. Radha Govinda are always very immaculately dressed at the moment. They have very wonderful pujaris there for the last 10, 12 years. And they're always very beautifully decorated and opulent. We can take Archaman there and we can chant Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpa Drumada Srimad Ratnagara Sansima Sansto Shri Shri Radha Shila Govinda Devo Pristalabdi Savyamana Smarami. These prayers we chant every morning. This is just a reminder for our prayers. This book I put on our WhatsApp website so you can get it. And then when we leave this mandir, we come out and just to our left, we go up a little incline, and at the top is the tongue of Giriraj, of Govardhan. This tongue, you'll remember when they were excavating for Shyamakund. The workmen, they dug a stone and blood became out. And Raghunath could see in his meditation, he heard this is the tongue of Giriraj. So that tongue was taken out, and now it's in a beautiful small altar, and it's worshipped as the tongue of Govardhan, Jiva of Govardhan. So we can also circumambulate the tongue. Then we come back down that little street, and again we come on to, now we're back onto the main Parikrama path for Radha Kund. We walk a little way down, and there's a sharp right that goes around, but there's another road that goes up straight. And if you follow this road up straight, we come to the Bhajan Kutia of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's just up that road there. And in there is a very beautiful ashram, and we can appreciate the mood of Bhaktivinoda Thakur a couple of 100 years ago, wanting to have his residence in Radha Kund. And he wanted to actually invite Western people to come into his ashram. So he took the trouble to make a Western toilet for the Westerners, because he knows that's very important for a Westerner. He was familiar with dealing with the Westerners. They don't know how to squat down, etc. So he built, there's a little Western toilet there, you can see. So this is his generous nature. His sensitive, generous nature was trying to accommodate Westerners coming to Radha Kund. He wanted, and he knew in his vision, that Westerners will come to Radha Kund. So he wanted them to feel not so foreign, but more at home. So then we come back from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house, back again to the Parikrama trail, and we take a left now, back onto the road. And we go just a little way, and we come to Lord Jagannath, Baladeva, and Subhadra. And these are very beautiful deities. The Pujari here is always very friendly, a very amicable person, and will always happily give us some Mahaprasad, give us garlands, so many things like this. He's very accommodating. And he, just a generous hearted soul. Compared to Gopinath temple, when you go into the Gopinath temple, if you're wearing saffron, the Babajis, they're not favorable to the saffron color at all. And you just get scowled looks at from all the Babajis there. They don't, acknowledge the saffron color particularly. So there's that whole Babaji energy is in the Gopinath temple. And in the Govinda temple, it's much less. But now you've come to Jagannath, it doesn't exist there. It's just a separate. The Babajis there are very gentle and open-hearted and accommodating. And then from the Jagannath Mandir, we walk around a little bit more. And on our right, we come to a little, it's like a room inside the wall. And there's Lord Ram. Because everybody is in Radha Kund. There's Ram, Sita, and Lakshman on an altar there. This is just before we come to Lalita Kund. There's a beautiful deity of Ram there. So then directly opposite that deity of Ram, there's a little red gate, and we can come in through that gate. And this is the ashram of Jiva Goswami. So who did Jiva Goswami worship? Radha Damodar. So you come into this, the back way into this temple, and you come into the front of this beautiful deity, very small, maybe 18 inches deity of Radha Damodar. Absolutely exquisite, so beautiful to look at, these deities of Radha. And the Pujari is a total saint. I've been so many years, and he's always completely dedicated to his puja, same Pujari. He's always busy with creating feasts and so on like that, feeding so many yatris. And he decorates the deities so beautifully. And he has many shalagrams there also that he worships. But you can have a really impactful darshan of Radha Damodar. It's beautiful, really beautiful. So we can circumambulate that whole little Radha Damodar mandir. And then we come out, I'm going quite quickly, then we come out and we've got the beautiful Lalita Kund facing us now. We've come out through Jiva Goswami's place and we're facing Lalita Kund. And then we chant this Shri, what's that from? Radha Mukunda Pada Sambramaгаramya Bindu Nirmanchano Pakarni Krisdevi Laksham Uttunga Suridam Vishesha Vashatpatalbam Devim Sunai Sulalitam Lalitam Namami. This is the first verse of the Lalita Astakam. We can chant that verse while we're remembering Lalita Saki. This is her kund. This is one of the only kunds that's completely intact. All the Astasaki's kunds surround Radha Kund, as well as the Sakas kunds. But the Sakas gave their kunds back to the Sakis. But still, there are all the other Sakis kunds are there. Some of them are manifest and some of them are not manifest. But Lalita Kund is very prominent, and this is manifest very nicely. And it's just been recently, in the last 5-7 years, renovated. And they put a nice fountain in the middle. When you see a nice fountain in the middle, it means the water is being aerated. That's what it actually indicates. So there's some movement of the water, so it doesn't remain stagnant. And the kund is very beautiful. So we can have darshan there, and you can see across from the kund, you can see a good darshan of the external aspect of Radha Kund. And then we come back on the Parikrama trail there, and then we walk around a little bit. And now they have a beautiful Govardhan Shila in a wall, and we keep walking, and we come around to our right. Now we're circumambulating. We've got Shama Kund is now on our right, and we come around the corner, and there's a couple of very beautiful temples with 24-hour kirtan that are always going on, very close to the doorways on the street there where we're walking. You come a little bit further, and you come to the well of Raghunath Das Goswami, this Kup. He excavated this well when he was building the Kund, or organizing the building of the Kund. He arranged for a well to be there so the yatris could wash their cloth with soap rather than use the Kund. He wanted to encourage this, that we use the well instead of the Kund water. And directly on the other side of the road, on the right-hand side of the road, opposite to the well, is Madhavendra Puri's sitting place, which is a very beautiful place, very accommodating also. We can go and take darshan there. And we'll be taking darshan of Shamakund from Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri has his place on Shamakund. And now we keep walking, and there's some very intense ashrams along the way. There's a couple of ashrams just for ladies, I think, and they're always having kirtan, etc. Very nice, strong kirtan. And then we again come around to the right, and we come to Chaitanya Baitak, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sitting place. And if some of you haven't visited for more than 3 years, you will be astonished, because one of my Gurudev's disciples, Paramananda Babaji, my Gurudev gave Babaji to maybe 2 disciples, and Paramananda was one of them. So Paramananda Das Babaji, he is the person, he's from the Philippines, and he's the person who renovated Janava Mata's sitting place. And now he's completely renovated this Baitak. If you haven't been there for 3 or 4 years, you will simply not think it's the same place. He's made it beautiful carved marble, a beautiful Singhasan, a beautiful altar in the front, a beautiful wide space for parikrama, a wide space to sit, and he's put monkey cage all around to keep the monkeys out, because there's so many monkeys here in Radha Kund, and he's made the place very, very accommodating. So he's performed tremendous seva here. Paramananda Puri Das Babaji is his name, and you can visit him there. So then from the Baitak, we can, of course, Mahaprabhu, he's sitting looking at Shamakund, because he himself is in a mood of Sri Radhika. So he only wants darshan of Krishna, of Shama, that personality, Sham Sundar. So this is Mahaprabhu looking at Shamakund. But we continue around a little bit, and then if we go a little bit further, and there's a small temple, if you come in beside, actually here, we can take Archaman from Shamakund. You can get down very easily to have access to Shamakund, just beside this Chaitanya Baitak. And then as you come up, almost immediately, there's a small temple. You can just go in there, and you see a very ancient tree. It must be more than 1,000 years old, and it's practically hollow completely inside, and it's a huge tree. And you can have darshan of that very sacred personality who's still residing on the bank of Shamakund, because we know that Shamakund is built in a crooked way, because the Pandavas revealed to Raghunath that we are residing here on the banks of Radha-kunda in the form of trees. So Raghunath didn't want to cut the trees, so they built around the trees at that time. So Krishna's Kund is crooked like Krishna, my Gurudev always describes, but Radha-kund is straight like Radha. She's direct, she's not crooked and duplicitous like Krishna is. So Shamakund is crooked and twisted. But then we keep walking past this tree I've described, and then you come through, and you again sort of start to come around to the right, because we're circumambulating, always to the right, we're turning. And then there's a tea stall just before the Sangam. Now, just before that tea stall, or right on the very edge of that tea stall, You have to remember this, because if you miss this, you've missed the three principal deities. We've already gone to Gopinath, we've gone to Radha Govinda, and now we've come to Radha Madan Mohan. Radha Madan Mohan are just before the tea stall, and we come into the right, and we come into a very large courtyard. It's beautiful. And of course, who is there? Sanatan Goswami Pad. Vairagya Yug Bhakti Rasam Prayatne Aparayan Mam Anabipsamandam Kripambudadya Paraduka Duki Sanatanam Tvam Prabhamashrayami. This is the prayer that is here. That's his pranam mantra. So we can offer to all these personalities. So Rupa Goswami is the Acharya of Abhidaya Tattva. That's Radha Govinda. So we've been there. Gopinath, this is the Prayojan Tattva, and Raghunath is there. Now we've come to the Sambandha Gyan, Sambandha Tattva. This is Sanatan Goswami and Madan Mohan. And we come into this temple area, which is very beautiful, and it's got glass doors on now to keep the dust out in summer. In summer, it gets so scorching hot here in Radha Kund. It's baking. And in the winter, it gets really, really cold. But there's a lot of dust, so they put beautiful glass doors in front of Madan Mohan. But you can go and you can still get very, very precious darshan of Madan Mohan there. So now we visited the three principal deities and Radha Damodar also, Jiva Goswami. And now we come past, just immediately past the tea stall, we come to the Sangam. And as we enter that Sangam, on our left, immediately is Gornitai. The two ecstatic brothers are residing here at the gate of the Sangam. And then we come into the Sangam and we can take bath at that point, or you can just take more archaman, and then we can return back up that same path of the Sangam. And then we come back to the tea stall, which was at the beginning of the Sangam, if you're with me. And then we take a right, because we're continuing our parikrama now, because we didn't do the first part of the parikrama. We came in a little at the beginning. So now we go to the right, and we go along just a little bit, and then you duck into a left gully, and it's Nityananda Prabhu's sitting place, which is very beautiful. This has all been renovated recently also. There's a lady who looks after the trust in Jaipur, and she's also manifested this whole place. And then you have Nityananda Prabhu very beautifully sitting there. It's his sitting place, and that's all been renovated very recently. So we can have darshan clearly of Nityananda Prabhu there. And then we can see the beautiful deities of the Ashtasakis, Gopinath and the Ashtasakis, Sri Radhika, on the altar there. It's a beautiful temple there. So then again we come out, and again we go to our left. We're back on the Parikrama trail again, and we're coming through some little shops and etc. There's another large cow path into the Kund at that place. Then we walk a little bit further around, and now we come into what is usually the main entrance. If you come from Vrindavan, this is generally the main entrance to the Parikrama. And at the main entrance is the gatekeeper, who is Kundeshwara. Kundeshwara is there just a little bit in on the left-hand side by a peepal tree. And there's a beautiful temple there. And you can take darshan of Kundeshwara and beg that your parikrama will be successful, that your heart will be sufficiently cleansed to appreciate the beauty and magnificence of Radha Kund and Shama Kund. So then we take darshan of Kundeshwara, and then we come in, and then we have a huge darshan of the Kund from a higher place. And then we almost immediately come back to where we began the parikrama from. So this is the complete Radha Kund parikrama that we've just walked around virtually together. And if you take this little book, it's on the website, it's on my website also, but it's in the WhatsApp group. You can yourself follow this parikrama if you're familiar with Radha Kund very easily. So now we're going to come, our parikrama party will actually take darshan of Kundeshwara, and then we will start on the road back to Giriraj Govardhan, back to our mat in Giridhari Govardhan. And we're going to stop at Kusum-sarovara on the way. And our dear Nrsimha Prabhu, he's going to tell us something of the glories of Kusum-sarovara. Radha Kund ki jai. Oh.
Ajnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikayai Tadalayai Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Radhikayai Priyatmane Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namane. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Vanchakalpaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, about 1.5 miles southwest of Radha Kund, we come to Kusum-sarovara, which means, Kusum means flowers, because this area was very, very, very beautiful gardens. So many fragrant trees were there, Beli, Malika, Chameli. Chameli is jasmine. We all know how fragrant. And Champak. Champak is a fragrant magnolia. And there's some growing here also with kind of a dark yellow skinny blossom. Very, very fragrant. So first, before describing the two pastimes that our Gurudev has told us took place here, just to say something about Kusum-sarovara, it is one of the most splendid looking of the kunds, because in the late 18th century, mid-late 1760s, like that, one Rajput king looted the treasury of Delhi, because that was under Muslims. Rajputs, they're fighting back strongly. And he looted the treasury, and with the money that he'd gotten from there, he built the bathing ghats at Kusum-sarovara, and they're splendid. You can look here, perhaps you can just see, very, very famous, very beautiful, carved, wonderful. So I'm going to say a little something about that in relation to what Maharaj shared with us yesterday from Srila Bhakti Sri Rupa Siddhanti Maharaj, his glorification of Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, because this is very beautiful, it's very glorious and grand. And you know what else is here? 3 tombs or cenotaphs. So there's the cenotaph of one king and his 2 wives that was built. I don't know, I haven't heard how they exactly are related to the king that built this. But anyway, and can also say one of the striking features of this Sarovar, there are these beautiful like piers. So you've got the bathing ghats, you've got the steps going down, and then you've got like these beautiful piers that go further out, I think 60 feet into the water. Very lovely. So part of the beauty, the glory we're looking at are tombs. And not tombs of, necessarily great devotees, not like samadhis. This is a royal thing. Yet it's very attractive. So we should be aware of this point, that our Gurudev used to say, I want to take you to Vrindavan. Come with me to Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada said, you cannot get a bus, a train to Vrindavan. So how are we going to get there, right? Got to get a bus or a train or a Tonga rickshaw or whatever. But that will get us to an external environment. To go to Vrindavan requires being brought by the pure devotee, by being brought by his words. He's bringing us. He's manifesting. The words of the pure devotee are non-different to what he's describing. When the pure devotee chants Hare Krishna, Radha and Krishna are there. We don't necessarily see them. We don't see them, but we have faith. We've heard. So we listen. So therefore, even though Gurudev said, I want to bring you, he'd also laugh. He would say, what you are seeing and what I am seeing are not the same. You are seeing dogs and pigs and plastic and all these things. I am not seeing that. So we have an external vision. So our external vision causes us to not see, not appreciate the holy places or the kirtan or anything. It's external, it's material. So in this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, when he was leaving, he had one kirtan performed. Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj was there, who is not only a pure devotee, but his voice, angelic, so beautiful that the India radio station would have him, they would do a program, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta loved it. He would listen to this. But at the time of his departure, he won't have Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj singing. He had one other devotee singing, several. You had Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj singing, but another devotee who did not have a very nice voice, no sense of rhythm, melody, but he's making the point that it's the bhakti, it's the internal, not the external. So we go to Kusum-sarovara, and I know myself go, wow, it's so beautiful. What's beautiful? Am I seeing those gardens where Radha and Krishna were? No. So Maharaj explained yesterday, as Srila Siddhanti Maharaj explained, that the neophyte, Vaidhi Bhakti, is very appreciative of externals. So we make very grand arrangements. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did too. He made very grand arrangements to attract the materialists. But it's also important to understand that he also uses the neophyte devotees to create these, because they want to be very busy doing big things, lots of books, big buildings, all external, opulence, not sweetness. Maharaj keeps explaining to me, said, you want to preach, then you have to perform bhajan. You have to catch something of the sweetness of the chanting. Otherwise, what will you give people? Some concepts. And you can maybe attract them to other devotees, but you won't have real potency. So real potency means we must have some connection with the sweetness. So it's not enough at all for us as devotees to be always doing big things, making big buildings. Yes, they're attracting millions of materialists. It's wonderful. But what are we doing? There are so many other devotees who can come and build these things at young, building, distributing lots of books, but our focus has to be on bhajan. So I'm making this point because here is a very beautiful place, and a lot we're looking at, we're going, wow, that's gorgeous. There are 3 tombs. It's like the Taj Mahal. It's beautiful, but it's dead. It's dead. So what gives life to Kusum-sarovara is not the tombs, and it is very wonderful that one great devotee king built something glorious there to be like, if you have a beautiful jewel, you put it in a big ring, a nice gold ring or whatever, and that's very nice. So this buildings are like the ring to set off the place. So now we'll hear about the real beauty of Kusum-sarovara, exactly as our Gurudev described. So he says, Kusum-sarovara is on the right of the Parikrama path, about 1.5 miles southwest of Sri Radha Kund. A forest of flowers, Kusuma, were here, full of varieties of trees, creepers, and flowers like Beli, Chameli, Juhi, Yuthi, Malika, Champak. Srimati Radhika used to come here on the pretext of picking flowers with her girlfriends. But her real intent was to meet Rasika Sri Krishna, with whom she would have love quarrels and sarcastic exchanges full of rasa. Krishna Bhavanamrita describes how one day Srimati Radhika was picking flowers here with her girlfriends when Krishna arrived, and the following exchange took place. Krishna, who is there? Radha, nobody. Krishna, tell me honestly, who are you? Nobody. Krishna, you are speaking in a very crooked way. Radha, oh, and you speak in a very straight way, don't you? Krishna, I am asking who you are. Radha, don't you know? Krishna, what are you doing? Radha, picking flowers to worship the sun god. Krishna, have you received permission from anyone to do so? Radha, there is no need of anyone's permission. Krishna, aha, I have caught a thief today. I wondered who was stealing flowers every day and ruining this garden. Now I have caught you. I will punish you straight away. Radha, since when have you become the master of this flower garden? Have you ever planted a single flower here? Have you ever even watered one? On the contrary, you ruined this flower garden with your hundreds and thousands of cows and your boisterous, brazen friends. Indeed, since when have you become the protector of this garden? Krishna, do not defame a pious, righteous person like me. Now I shall teach you a good lesson. Radha, smiling. Ah, you are a highly pious and righteous person, are you? You killed a woman right after your birth. You lied to your mother, even in childhood. You stole butter from the houses of the neighboring Gopis. And when you became a little older, you stole the clothes of the young Gopis. Only a few days ago, you killed a calf. This is the extent of your pious, saintly conduct. Hearing the retort, Krishna scratched his head and looked towards clever Madhu Mangal, who advised him, one's well-being lies in remaining quiet. At this point, all the Sakis surrounded Shama Sundar and began to clap. So this is an amazing exchange, very filled with sarcasm. Radharani's sarcasm is exquisite, and Krishna is completely defeated. So this is the epitome of Rasik. And this brings extreme joy to Rasik Bhavuka devotees like our Gurudev, who are always eager to see how Radhika is defeating Krishna, and he is always coming to her in a very humble, surrendered, submissive state. They don't like to hear about the opposite. We won't even say what that is, but they want that Krishna is in separation from Radha. Krishna is defeated by Radha, and Krishna is coming to surrender to Radha. And this is called Gaudiya Vaishnav. Gaudiya. Vaishnav means devotees of Vishnu, Narayan, of God. Great, great personalities. The Vaikuntha planets are full of them. But then there are Karshnas who are worshipping Krishna. Like, for instance, all the Sakhas. They are all worshipping in Sakyabhav. They are all worshipping Krishna like that. But Lord Chaitanya came to give the world the Gaudiya Vaishnav conception, worshipping Radha, just like Krishna, worshipping Radha. So then the other pastime, which is just very funny. Now, this is not Radharani being sarcastic. This is Krishna being his wonderful, cheating, tricky, mischievous, amusing self. One morning, Srimati Radhika and her Sakis came to the bank of Kusuma-sarovara to pick belly, chameli, juhi, kanere, champak, and other flowers that bloomed here. Srimati Radhika saw a tree with a branch full of flowers. Knowing that she was coming to Kusuma-sarovara to pick flowers, playful Krishna had already climbed that very tree. Using all his weight, he pushed the branch down and remained hidden in the foliage so that Srimati Ji could not see him. So he's pushed this branch down. So now it's what we would call, it's filled with low-hanging, what we say low-hanging fruit. Here are all these flowers, perfect, because so many flowers, they're higher up. This is wonderful. So Srimati Ji, she goes to this branch and pulling it down a little more with one hand, holding there, and then she becomes very absorbed in picking flowers with the other hand. And at this point, Krishna sees she's holding, yes. He suddenly shifts to another branch, taking his weight off that branch, which leaps up in the air. So the branch is sprung up, lifting up Radhika with it, and she cried out for help. Shri Krishna leapt out from the tree. He caught hanging Srimati Ji in his arms. The Sakis began clapping and laughing loudly. But Srimati Radhika, releasing herself from Sri Krishna's embrace, scolded him harshly. Now that flower garden at Kusum-sarovara has completely disappeared. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Kusum-sarovara ki jai. Kusum-sarovara ki jai. Thank you so much, Nrsimha.
Hare Krishna.
Very
Thank you,
beautiful.
Maharaj.
Very beautiful.
By your order, otherwise I would just sit here,
So,
listen to you, telling wonderfully.
thank you. We'll have our Damodarastakam Kirtan.
Namam Ishwaram Satchidananda Rupam Lasat Kundalango Kuleyatyamanam Yashoda Viyolukaladavamanam Param Vishamatyanta Gopya Udam Tamohonetra Chubham Vijantam Param Buddha Yogmena Sapankanetram Ushvasa Kampa Trirakanta Kanta Sita Graiva Damodaram Bhaktivadam Uti Diksahila Virananda Kunde Swagoshami Majantam Nakyapayantam Tadiya Shitageshu Bhakta Jidatvam Purna Premadastam Shatam Vitivante Vadam Deva Moksham Mokshavalimba Majam Yamrine Anvarishadapiya Idam Deva Purnata Gopala Balam Swayame Manasya Virasyantinate Idam Temur Mangodam Avyattanilai Utam Kundale Snita Rakshastabhokya Mostyum Nitam Bimbaratadaranne Manasya Virastam Namakshavane Namo Deva Namo Dharananda Vishnu Vasudha Prabodita Jalapiyanam Kripa Vrishi Vishyati Dinambatano Vihane Shamamadhyam Yakshudishya Kudevana Jogada Jai Yadvat Paramati no bhakti bhajo kritaya. Tata prema bhakti sakame payacha. Namo Shuddha me Sri Namo Dareya. Namaste Sri Dhamme Suraki Dhamme. Adiyodharaya ta Vishwasadame. Namo Radhikaya ta Diya Priyaya. Namo Nandalilaya Devaya Purnam. Namo Radhikaya ta Diya Priyaya. Namo Nandalilaya Devaya Purnam. Jaya Damodara, Jaya Damodara, Damodara, Jaya Damodara, Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Jaya Radha Damodara. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Jaya Radhe 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 Jaya Shri Radhe 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 Jaya Shri Radhe Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaur Hari Bo, Nitai Gaur Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo.
Nitai Gaura Haribo,
Radha Damodar Ju ki
Jai.
jai. Radha Kund ki jai.
Jai.
Vraja-mandala Parikrama 2023 ki jai.
Jai.
Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Gurudev ki jai.
Jai.
Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Gauda Premanandi.
Haribo, Jai.
Vancha
Damodar.
Kalpatarubhyascha. Kripa Sindhubevacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.
Vanja Kalpa.